What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel. I don't know if there's an unlike button, but I would hit it. I would smash the shit out of the unlike button for crypto and for myself at the moment, to be quite frank. Like I said, I have been a victim, I guess we'll call it, although I take full responsibility for all of my own decisions. So none of us are really victims, right? We knew the risks and we took them. But it's seemingly been bad news followed by bad news followed by bad news on a day-to-day basis. And listen, I'd rather be dealing with that on my own. But obviously, I have a responsibility to you guys, to my audience. I know that a lot of you are going through it too and want to share your stories and hear what's going on with me. So listen, we should probably start from the beginning. Right. Obviously, there's people here who maybe have not been paying attention to what's going on or don't really know the whole story. So I'll give you the very abridged version of the contagion in crypto that's happening. Obviously, largely this started with Luna, the collapse of their algorithmic stablecoin UST, and that entire ecosystem effectively going to zero. Right now, most of you probably suffered through that, but we thought that maybe those losses were going to be limited. Some of us, I'm not going to name names, went on national TV on Fox Business and said how impressive it was that the crypto market had contained that contagion. Free market had continued on. So, like, I'm not going to name names, but whoever that was, looking at that clip is probably pretty embarrassing in retrospect. I'm not saying who it was. Me. So it was me. It was me. That's me. Right. And so obviously, Three Arrows Capital, we all know now, was massively exposed to Luna. Maybe $500 million. There's a lot of conjecture. They also had extreme leverage longs. Of course, that $500 million worth about $600. Now, they were extremely over leveraged. They were taking loans from everyone in the business. And for whatever reason, Three Arrows Capital was effectively viewed as like the most stable and amazing counterparty you could possibly lend money to ever in the crypto space. BlockFi lent them $1 billion, although that was over collateralized at $1.3 billion with crypto assets. So it ended up being under collateralized by the time those assets dropped. But at least BlockFi had the presence of mind to do a collateralized and were the first to liquidate them. But let's not pretend that BlockFi wasn't a hair's breadth away from complete and utter fucking destruction, right? And then we found out that Voyager had about 700 million loaned to them, which was largely uncollateralized, right? And so Voyager went ahead when Three Arrows Capital, and now listen, Three Arrows Capital seemingly probably lied to everyone. They probably cooked their books, said that they were solvent. Nobody was giving them a loan without them lying, basically. But that doesn't matter. Everybody has to be aware of the risks. And Voyager, obviously, who I've been with since day one as a customer, it is my main off-ramp. It was my crypto bank account. They obviously had a huge loan there. And now that Three Arrows Capital, even though they called in that loan and threatened with lawyers and all of that, Three Arrows Capital has declared Chapter 15 bankruptcy, and therefore that money is probably going to be locked up for a very long time. So now we're looking at Three Arrows Capital and then Voyager, and then seemingly there's just been this sort of babble and Vault, of course, Vault, who's long been a sponsor. Yes, I had money on Vault because, as I told you guys, if I'm going to have a sponsor, I'm going to have skin in the game. So could I have removed it? Yes, but they were my sponsor. So and the money I got paid to sponsor is gone on Vault for now, right? But we'll get into that news. And of course, though, I've always talked about the fact that you need to understand your risk, manage your risk. So the money that I had on these platforms was a percentage. The bulk of my Bitcoin, of course, is in cold storage. Not the case for everything else, right? So here's most of my Ethereum is now temporarily, we'll say. I don't know if Voyager will make it right. Gone. My Solana's gone. Some of my Bitcoin is gone. And a lot of the things that I got paid with in USDC, gone, right? So it's an interesting story in risk management, right? Because Voyager for me was my off-ramp. I have millions of dollars in there, to be transparent, right? And most of my liquidity in the crypto market, when I talk about having 15% of my portfolio in USDC, et cetera, all these other things, that's the kind of places that this money was parked, right? And so when Celsius went down, I obviously hit them up, hit up Vault every day. What's going on? Well, Celsius was gambling in DeFi. It's a shame. They're giving the whole industry a bad name. And listen, to some degree, obviously, people panicked from these other platforms, whether justified or not, because of what was happening with Celsius and started to take their money off in a bank run. but that doesn't excuse, obviously, the massive amount of capital lent to 3AC. But these assurances, were different. That's not even the same business model, all of those things. And listen, they've been my friends for a very long time. I believed in it. And frankly, one day, as you know, the withdrawal limits just decreased to $10,000 a day anyways. So I didn't have an option to remove it, even if I wanted to. Now, think about this fact, too. Like, say that you were trading and you always were responsible and you put your USDC aside, you make some money on a trade, get paid in Bitcoin, whatever, any of these things. And then some of the money that you made, you sell 40% of it, put it in USDC for your taxes. Well, good risk management, right? Not if that money disappears, right? Not if that money disappears. So, yeah, big mistakes were made. And usually it was a matter of trust, right? I don't think any of these guys are bad people. I think they all genuinely are doing their best. And I have certain hope that we will see our funds back. But, like any of you, I'm down the same situation. No response from anyone once it all went down. Zero. I'm sure the lawyer said, don't talk to anyone. Zero preferential treatment. Same situation. Millions of dollars locked. And this was the core of, obviously, like my active liquidity in crypto, my business, right? Listen, yes, I lost a sponsor. I don't care about that. But the money that I got paid is also effectively gone, right? Because to have skin in the game, I put it on their platform, So the bottom line is we're at a point where you really have to think about where you put your coins and how you behave as a custodian, right? I think that's very obvious. I think that a lot of exchanges are probably very safe. This is obviously in the lending protocol, but if you're not actively using those coins, just take them off the exchange. Now, for me, I always believed I'll take my bulk of my Bitcoin off, put it in multi-sig, and store it. It's a great storage solution. ERC20 tokens don't really have hardware wallet, of course, which a lot of it's on. They don't have sort of the same multi-sig, really safe sort of protocol. There's nightmares with those situations. So a lot of that was sitting for me on these platforms, unfortunately. So like any of you, listen, there's hey, will I ever get my money back? Right. And then B, if I don't, the human mind, of course, you can only think one way. And that's when this shit all goes up 10 times, think about how disappointing those losses will be. Right. Having a bunch of Ethereum disappear at 1,000, if you think it's going to 10,000, is an extra hit. And like I said, I'm not saying these coins are gone for anyone. I do believe that there are a lot of willing suitors for these companies. Let's just say that the vultures are circling, I think it would be fair to say, and that there will probably be bailouts of the best platforms. We'll talk about some of the news, of course. But yeah, I mean, the moral of the story at this point is that this contagion, which was sort of laughed off, it made it all the way down to every level, I think, of the crypto space, to every individual, which was unexpected, but certainly I'm sure YouTubers losing their money and influencers and companies and literally everyone, right? And so, here's a good question. Can you claim it as a loss on your tax? Not that I'm aware of, because those coins haven't been sold. So it's going to still own taxes on all that, right? So listen, I don't know how all of this is going to end. I'm certainly sorry that any of us, myself, any of you are in this boat. And I can say that I've felt the sort of after effects of it. This was sort of the final straw, obviously, is this happening. But I've had investments where I wasn't, exposed to something, but things I was invested in were exposed to it and lost money there, right? I found very creative ways to sort of be exposed to things that I thought was well managed. And so I don't know if you guys have ever read the book Anti-Fragile. Listen, it's hard to quote Talib these days because he's become such a Bitcoin hater. But, one of the core concepts, obviously, of being anti-fragile and risk management is the unknown unknowns, right? The idea that you're managing risk based on what you have seen as a worst case scenario in the past or what you assume, but you're rarely are companies or people managing it for that black swan event. That's something you've never seen before, right? And so I think for a lot of us, we thought we were managing our risk, moving some money into USD, taking profits, doing all these things. But the unknown unknown was that all of that money could disappear in a second.